name is Heather Stryker, 32-year-old female from Williamsport, Pennsylvania, and I have autism. Okay, a few things first. I definitely do not have a mute on my mic, so anything that you hear in the background, I apologize. I have a cat that likes to talk. I have a dog that likes to pace, and I'm currently doing laundry, so just ignore all that. That's not the point for being here today. What I want to do is kind of record my life story, my struggles, everything that I've been through. Long story short, it took me 27 years to find out that I had autism. So things were pretty difficult for me growing up. And you're going to hear a lot about that throughout this video. I'm not sure how long it's going to be. I may or may not get emotional, so please bear with me. It's definitely been a long journey. So my childhood was kind of tough. What happened was I grew up mostly without a dad. He just refused to be around. Had 20 million kids to different moms. Obviously not literally, but it kind of feels that way. And I am only friends with one of those kids. And we get along pretty well because he abandoned us both. So basically what was going on is I spent my entire life living with my mom, who was working 3 jobs to keep food on our table. And my grandparents took care of me while she was away. Other than when I lived in Georgia, there were, random people that would watch me during the day while my mom was at work. She really didn't have a choice. There wasn't any family around down there in Georgia for the longest time to watch me. And obviously I was a difficult kid. I was very, very temperamental. And looking back on it now, I really, really want to be able to redeem myself someday with that. I had no idea. No one else knew. Everybody thought I was just a troublemaker growing up. I was always really high-strung. The littlest thing set me off. My social anxiety disorder kicked in when I was 4, and then everything else just went downhill from there. I definitely felt different than our kids. When I started school, things were different because my brain doesn't process things as quickly as a normal person would. And you'll see it throughout this video. You'll see me pause, and I'll have no way of getting to my conclusion very quickly. Things will just stop for a minute because my brain is going like this, but my mouth goes like this. So, if it makes sense. So when I went to kindergarten, I started out in Georgia. Kids definitely noticed something different about me from the very beginning. I don't know if it's just something that kids pick up on, kind of what it was. I would end up... Sorry for the pause. I had to sneeze, and it went away. So, pretty much I would get picked on for not coming up with answers as quickly as I should. My brain, like I said, it definitely has a delay to it. I can't think in real time, I guess you would say. It's just kind of like when I try to think about something, I hit a wall. Nothing will let me go past that wall. And then maybe 2-3 hours later, I'll come up with the idea, and I'm like, oh, that's what they meant. I mean, it completely sucked. And I definitely miss social cues sometimes. I don't catch on to sarcasm. I do a lot better now, but I still don't catch all of it. So, I mean, there's that. People think that I was just really dumb. And I guess that was just how they perceived me because I never got an autism diagnosis. When I went to school, if I didn't know how to do something, I would have tutors and stuff sit down with me, like with my math, and try to help me along. But all they kept doing was trying to teach me the same thing. And it got so frustrating. I never learned anything without going through tons of struggles because they had no idea that I was different or didn't care or something like that. I went to school in the 90s. And at that time, it was still kind of a thing where people believed that girls couldn't have autism. So I don't know what they honestly thought about me. I don't know if they thought I was dumb, if I just wasn't paying attention in class. Well, I mean, of course I can't pay attention to something that doesn't apply to me. I don't know how to learn it. Somehow, math was the only problem that I had that issue with. I was good at spelling, I was good at reading, absolutely awesome at writing. But I guess that's just where my talent lies with this autism. It just doesn't make any sense to me. But the bullying and everything like that got worse, and it continued all the way through high school. I definitely did have issues outside of high school and elementary school. I forgot to mention that. It's just people that were supposed to protect me, they didn't. I had narcissists in my family. I had protectors that were supposed to be people to take care of me and watch over me, and all they did was put me down. Sometimes I went through physical abuse, and nothing sexual, but definitely a lot of physical and emotional abuse. I would constantly deal with this idea that my brain wasn't quick enough. I would try to explain it to family members, and some people they didn't respond to it. They didn't know how to respond, but there were some that were just like, oh, well, everybody goes through that. No, they don't. I am literally slower than everybody else, so what's the deal? Well, it just kept happening and happening and happening. I was being brushed off and told nothing was wrong. So there were some days when I would get so frustrated that it would put me in tears because I didn't know how to process this thing that supposedly everybody had. I mean, nobody else that I knew of had problems like that. They didn't have issues with the lack and ability to be able to think as quickly as everybody else. Sometimes I was always the last one to laugh at a joke because I couldn't figure it out. That's not something, especially if I'm being bullied for, that's not something that I actually know that everybody deals with. I know for a fact that it's different. I mean, it's continued all the way through, all the way up to adulthood, and sometimes still does today. Here's the point. My life from whenever I learned to talk all the way up until I was 27 was just a big hurricane of confusion. I failed out of college because of this. And I started to get depressed. Actually, before I even got to high school, I was starting to get depressed because I knew something was wrong, but nobody would acknowledge it. It just didn't make sense to anybody, or they were just brushing it off, or it really hurts growing up knowing that there's something inside your head that doesn't work right and not being able to explain it properly to get the proper attention. I tried so hard to tell everybody, hey, look, there's something's wrong. My brain, there's something wrong with me. My brain does not work the way everybody else's should. And I would have these examples of the times I would point it out when it happened and nobody knew what I was talking about. It was so frustrating. That was over 20 years of that. I would at least hope that people in school would have seen it, like my teachers and all the people that try to tutor me. None of them saw it. Not one even mentioned to me that there may be something wrong. So that's part of the issue that I had, and that's what caused most of my depression and my anxiety. Still to this day, I can be suicidal because of it. And I just felt like maybe I was a defective human being. There was no reason for me to be here. So, anyway, a couple of years ago, because of my interest in thunderstorms, I decided to be a certified storm spotter. I went through the National Weather Service, got my tag, everything like that. So I'm actually certified to be a storm spotter. And I joined a group of storm trackers that were originally just here in Pennsylvania, but now they're all across the national area. And one of the ones that is in Pennsylvania with me here, he's autistic. And he constantly explains on the daily about like his struggles. He has this chart that goes green, yellow, orange, red, I think. And it's a scale from like 1 to 4 on how likely he is to have a meltdown, which is where we get so frustrated and we're so tired of all the crap that we just shut down. And he would tell us what level he was at so that we knew whether or not he was in joking mood, anything like that. And I kind of thought about it, and I realized, hey, that kind of sounds familiar, some of that stuff. Like, not wanting to be around humans certain days, and I thought that was a normal thing, but apparently it is, but it's worse for people with autism because we pick up everything. We sometimes can't stand it if there is a lot of noise going on. That's called sensory overload. When things just get too overwhelming for all of our senses, and that causes us to want to buzz off. For me, it's a lot of people talking really loud at once, and some people just don't understand that it really pisses me off. I can't put up with it. There are some days where I'll be visiting with family members and everything, and all of a sudden I'll just get this hankering in my head like, I'm overloaded. I need to get the hell out of here. I need to go home, relax, be in my own element, read a book, play a video game, whatever. I started to realize that a lot of the things that he told me about, they paralleled my own experiences. And even from my teenage days all the way up, I kind of dreamed of this day where I would be sitting in front of a therapist and tell them all the things that are going on, and they would give me this diagnosis that would just unlock everything that's been going on. All my life I'd been behind this door and I couldn't get through. It was the solution to whatever was going on in my head, but there was no way for me to get through. There was no key. And having a therapist hand me the key to that door, it would cause like this huge, overwhelming emotional relief, and I would break down in tears because somebody finally explained what the hell was going on with my head. And eventually it got to the point where I started doing my own research. And I kind of figured out that a lot more traits that I identify with were autistic traits. I didn't know this. I had no clue. So what happened was, once I started doing my research and realizing that I might possibly be autistic, things started slowly unlocking. Like that, the key turned just a little bit. Like I was given a key, but I just couldn't get it unlocked. I didn't know what to do. So because I was advocating for autism at that time, I'd started learning more about it. And I wanted to defend my friends who were having issues with autism. I wanted to make sure that they were treated fairly in life and not brushed off just because they have autism. I learned a lot during that time. This was between the time that I was 25, 26, going on 27, up until the time where I realized what happened. There's this test that's online, and I honestly forget what it is, but I should be able to put a link in the description. It's supposed to be a guide to help us understand whether somebody has autistic traits or not, whether they're neurodiverse, which is what autism is, or neurotypical, which is what everybody else is. So I took this test, and the results that I got showed that I had some neurotypical traits and some neurodiverse traits, which probably means that I am autistic, but something that we've had to do our entire lives is we've had to do what's called masking. Because neurotypical people, a lot of them are just so afraid of what we are and what we do. Like, it makes them uncomfortable just to be us in public. So we have to learn our entire lives how to be around neurotypical people without seeming off. And as a kid, I didn't know that. So that's why people thought I was so weird. And that particular mask has spent so much time on my face that it feels like it's been glued. And it's just so hard to help yourself unlearn how to mask and try to be you. The last couple of years, that's what I've been trying to do. And it's been a living hell. Just trying to undo all the damage and all the things that I've learned that I had to do in order to make neurotypicals comfortable with me being around, and trying to... This is literally how you build a social life. You have to cover your face figuratively around people that don't want to see your autism. But it's a thing that still goes on today. In some situations, we still have to mask. In job interviews, in pretty much trying to better our lives in any way. Even, going out and trying to get a personal loan or anything, we have to mask, because if anybody sees anything slightly off from what they can consider to be a normal human being, you're flat out denied. I've been turned down job interviews because of my inability to not fidget. One of my main fidgets is bouncing my leg up and down, like you see people do when they're trying to recirculate your blood. We want to be like those folks. I mean, nothing towards anybody that's neurotypical, but there are so many people on this planet that they don't like us because we're weird. We're just strange to them. So, I mean, even right now I'm bouncing my leg and I always find myself doing it regardless. Because it makes you look nervous. It makes you look like you can't control yourself. It can even... Doing things like that can even ruin relationships. People get annoyed by your things that you do. We call them stims, is help us stimulate our minds in the way that we don't understand, really. It just... Bouncing my leg feels natural to me. And if I don't do it, if I try to stop myself from doing it, I feel like this pressure somewhere deep in my brain saying, hey, why'd we stop? I just did it now and I felt it. Right now I'm playing with a pen constantly because I'm just trying to help my brain move along. If I don't, my brain's going to stop and go, hey, why aren't we fidgeting with something while we're doing this? It's like your brain will not function unless you're doing those. If you feel strange, if you feel like you don't belong, if you feel like people are telling you you're weird, ask you, why do you do that? Why do you do this? But it was a very, very long, sad, struggling 27 years to find out what happened. And now that I've found out what happened, I'm still learning about why I do certain things. I'm still looking back. I'll lay in bed at night and I'll be looking back and I'll be like, I'm autistic. That's why that happened. It opened a door. And I'm Wiccan, but I used to be Christian. And let me tell you something. When people always told me about how they found Jesus and it opened up everything and showed everything in a new light, that's how I feel when I learned I was autistic. It was that key to that door I was looking for a long, long time. And honestly, if I hadn't found out, I would still be sitting here wondering why I'm so stupid. My neurons just don't know how to take the short path. So, yeah, that's pretty much what happened to me. I'm 32 now. I'm engaged. But I went through a lot to get here. And I just lost a job recently because of my autism and depression and anxiety. All of that stuff just, it comes together, and once in a while it decides to fall on you. So, anyway, my point is, if you feel like there's something different about you that the majority of the population doesn't do, if you think differently, if you feel like you think differently than other people, definitely see if you can go and take that test. I'm going to go ahead and drop the link down here in the description. Now, just as a disclaimer, that's not a replacement for medical advice. Even if one person finds out that they're autistic and they didn't know it all this time, that'll be a success for me. Again, I'm going to drop the link in the description of the autism test that I took that helped me figure out where I stand. If you need to reach out to me to talk about autism, if you want to reach out, definitely feel free. You can reach me on Facebook. You can reach me on here. I will be happy to help you out. Take care, and I hope you find everything that you're looking for in life.